Good evening, Fremont Community Church. How are we doing? Pray everybody's had a good day. We're still on our trek through the Old Testament. Today we're going to look at the exile, but we're also going to look at the restoration that begins to take place, proving to us that no matter how far we've fallen from God's good graces, no matter what punishments we think we're experiencing, God still has a plan for you and I. So we're going to dive into this narrative. We're going to talk about the exile, like I said, the restoration, and the unwavering faithfulness that's found in the books of 2 Kings, 2 Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther. Don't worry, it's not going to be that long of a message, but we're going to cover basically 5 books. See, this message is about how God's faithfulness transcends our own unfaithfulness. How His sovereignty reigns even when our hours are at their darkest. So let's set the scene here. I want you to imagine for a moment you're in a foreign land. You're far from home. You're stripped of your identity. You're stripped of your culture, the things that you call yours. And think about that. That was the reality for the Israelites while they're in exile in Babylon. But amidst this desolation, amidst this darkness they're experiencing, God was still at work. He was orchestrating the plan for their return, for their restoration. See, the Babylonian exile, the time of judgment, is found in 2 Kings and 2 Chronicles. I mean, it begins in 2 Kings and it ends in the Chronicles. And we see that the Israelites are facing the consequences of their unfaithfulness to God. When Judah fell into sin, when they fell into idolatry, when they rebelled against God, in His righteous judgment, He allowed Babylon to conquer Judah. It led to the destruction of Jerusalem. It led to the destruction of the temple. And if you read 2 Kings verses 25, chapter 25, verses 8 through 10, it says this: In the 5th month of the 7th day of the month, there was a 19-year-old king, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar, the captain of the guard, served the king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem, and he burned the house of the Lord and the king's house, and all the house of Jerusalem. Every great house was burned down. I want you to think a moment for a parent disciplining a child. Because when we stray from our righteousness, there are consequences. When our kids disobey us, there are consequences. And in a moment, our judgment may seem harsh. In the moment, God's judgment here seems harsh. But in both cases, it's rooted in love. If it's not rooted in love, then you got to question yourself. But most discipline is rooted in love. To fail to discipline your child is a lack of love in many ways. For God not to discipline us when we fail, when we fall short, when we mess it up deliberately, would not show love. So ultimately, everything was rooted in love. His desire was to bring the Israelites back to Him. I mean, even in exile, God's love remains sovereign. He used the Babylons, He used those hard times to fulfill His promise. Listen to what Jeremiah says in 29:10 and 11. For thus says the Lord, when 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will visit you and I will fulfill to you my promises and bring you back to this place. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. Just as God had a plan for the Israelites, even in their disobedience, He has a plan for you and I, even in our struggles. When life feels overwhelming, and if it does it now, either has in the past or it will in the future, I want you to remember something. God is in control. Your current situation does not define your destiny, my friends. And after 70 years of exile, God fulfilled His promise to the Israelites. Through Ezra and Nehemiah, He leads the Israelites back to Jerusalem to rebuild the temple, back to Jerusalem to rebuild the city walls. Listen to Ezra 1 through 3. We see King Cyrus of Persia issuing a decree allowing the Jews to return. The Lord stirred up a spirit of Cyrus so that he made a proclamation throughout his kingdom. Whoever's among you of all his people, let him go up to Jerusalem. And if you read Nehemiah 2:17, it reiterates this. You see the trouble we are in, how Jerusalem lies in ruins, its gates burned. Come, let us build the wall of Jerusalem that we may no longer suffer derision. It sounds like a homeowner that just faced a devastating storm. If you live in Florida, which I did, it's not if the hurricane ever comes. It is when the hurricane will come. And when the hurricane comes, it makes a mess. I lived through Hurricane Ivan, and Pensacola and that whole Gulf Coast was a mess. Because after that storm would pass by, all you could see was wreckage. All that Nehemiah and his people are seeing now is wreckage. The rebuilding process was going to be slow. It was going to be laborious. But with determination, with faith, they end up restoring their home. Similarly, the Israelites faced these challenges, but they were driven by faith in God's promises. They restored their home. In the midst of this restoration, you find the story of Esther. And while the Israelites were rebuilding their lives, a threat still was against them and very present. And Esther, a Jewish woman, became the queen of Persia. And Haman plotted to annihilate the Jews. And Esther intervened. Listen to what it says in Esther 4:14. For if you kept silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise for the Jews from another place. But you and your father's house will perish. Eventually, the decree does go out. The people can go home. Ezra leads a spiritual revival. Nehemiah leads the reconstruction of the wall. It wasn't easy. They did face opposition. Just like in every situation, they faced doubt, just like you and I. They faced a temptation to quit, just like you and I. But then again, if you read Nehemiah 6:3, it's one of the most powerful verses for anyone trying to build their life or rebuild their life. I am carrying a great project that cannot go down. When you are in a season of restoration, the enemy is going to try to distract you. Trust me. People are going to criticize your progress. But you have to keep your eyes on what God has called you to do. See, restoration isn't about going back to how things were. Remember the Israelites in the wilderness wanted to go back to the slavery. It's about building something stronger. It's about a deeper resilience on God than you had before. So where does that leave you and me? Where does it leave us? First of all, we got to remember about God's sovereignty and judgment. Even when it feels like we're suffering consequences for our own poor decisions, God is still on the throne. And he often uses hard seasons to prune us, to clean us up, to make us stronger. The next one is God's faithful to the unfaithful. The Israelites were unfaithful, but God remained faithful to his covenant. My friends, that's the gospel. Even when you and I are unfaithful, even when we mess it up, even when we go left and we should have went right, he remains faithful. He remains faithful because of his covenant, and God cannot deny himself. And the third thing is, for such a time as this, I don't know what season you're in, my friends. Some of us are in some rough times. Some of us are in some seasons of indecision. Some of us are in some seasons of I don't know what's next. And whether you're waiting for your walls to be rebuilt, or you're in the middle of a foreign land, I'm here to tell you there is a reason. See, my God and your God is the God of restoration. He is the God who brings his people home. And my friends, you're not defined by your exile. You are defined by the one who is walking with you through that exile. That's all I have. You guys have a blessed night. Take care.